Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the polarity of molecules. So in the previous video, we looked at the different shapes or arrangement of molecules you can have. You can have linear, trigonal, planar, tetrahedral, pyramidal, and bent. Now, usually the non-polar molecules, they're the more symmetrical molecules. So like your linear shape, trigonal, planar, and tetrahedral, they're usually non-polar. But the polar molecules, they're the ones that usually have that lone pair of electrons and that create those bent and pyramidal shapes. So they're usually the more polar molecules. And that's to do with symmetry. We'll go through an example of a bent polar molecule. Let's look at water. Okay. So H2O, two hydrogens, and one oxygen. Now we have to look at the electronegativity of this oxygen compared to the hydrogen. Now oxygen has a higher electronegativity, which means that it's going to pull those electrons within these bonds. It's going to pull them more towards the oxygen side. It's going to pull them up this way. So because there's more electrons closer to this oxygen atom compared to the hydrogens, it means that there's going to be a partial negative charge or a negative dipole on this oxygen. So we write partial negative charge on that oxygen because of the shape and also because of the electronegativity of that oxygen pulling it closer to the one side. So this side's negative, and then that also means that this is going to be partial positive on both of these as well. So they're going to have positive charges over here too, because there's a lower electron density. Now let's have a look at a non-polar molecule and why it's non-polar. So if we look at carbon dioxide has a linear shape in a straight line like this. Now oxygen is one of the highest electronegativity atoms on the periodic table. So oxygen is going to, again, pull the electrons more towards the side. These electrons are going to be closer to the oxygen than to the carbon atom. All right, just like with the water. But because of the shape of this molecule, we're still going to have a partial negative over here and a partial negative over here. But because they're on opposite sides and they're in opposite directions, they actually cancel each other out because for a molecule to be polar, it has to have one region that is partially negative or partially positive. This one's got two, one on each side. So because there's two partially negative sides, one here and one here, there is not one specific region that is partially negative. There's one on both sides. They're the same magnitude. They'll both be the same negativity, but they're on opposite directions, so they cancel each other out, which means that overall, this molecule is neutral or it has no dipole. So it's a non-polar molecule. All right, and that you'll find the same for trigonal planar and tetrahedral. Because of the symmetry of the atom, we draw a line down the middle. Because of the symmetry, it's the same on that side, same on that side. There's not going to be one region where it's negatively charged. There's two, and they're both exactly the same on both sides, which means that there's no polar regions. All right, hopefully that makes a bit more sense.